I've worked in finance for 15 years, and sometimes these financial influencers just don't get the order of things. Don't worry, I'm going to give you that order, but every investing term, where it came from, is in its name. And if you learn it in the right order, it actually makes sense. Okay, here we go. You have to watch this all the way through. There is a method to this madness. First is capital. Capital is anything of beneficial value. That could be cash, cars, houses. You have capital. Capital is value. A stock is a tiny piece of a company. If you own a stock, you own a small piece of that company, which means you can share in the profits or losses. You are invested in that company's success. That's why it's called investing, because if that company does well and goes up in value, the value of that stock that you own will go up in value too. We call that capital appreciation. See, there's still more. Now, since a stock is just a company, in order for it to be available, it has to go through an IPO process, which stands for initial public offering. When a company goes through an IPO, they're giving up ownership to the public where you and I can go buy it, and they're doing it to raise capital to get cash. And before technology, it was physical stock certificates. In order to go public, they have to list it somewhere, and that's where a stock exchange comes in. That's like the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. Back in the day, you physically would exchange physical certificates of stocks, thus stock exchange. Now it's all electronic. If we were to put all those stock exchanges together, you would get the stock market. When a company goes through its initial public offering, that is the only time in this scenario where they're actually getting cash. Otherwise, it goes secondhand. I could be selling you my stock, you could be selling yours, institutions all around. It's literally the secondhand market. That's why we call it the secondary market. Literally like Poshmark or Depop or something like that. Then there's market capitalization. That's the markets, so the marketplace, buyers and sellers, assigned value. The market cap of a stock is literally the total value. If you were to take all of the shares outstanding times the price, you get the total value of the company. And we measure the stock market on something called an index or an indice, which is the collective. The most common one's the S&P 500. That's 500 collective stocks. If the collective is going up, then that means the stock market's going up. Now you know. Follow for more.